Eric's response converted at least one person before we left. Felt like he was almost picking fights at times, overheating. I'm shedding layers of clothes. Me and Jiren had loads of very constructive conversations.
In your opinion, as someone that's met him and spent just a little bit of time around him, where do you think he goes from here?
I think...
Who are you and what do you do?
So I'm Dave McKeegan. I now make YouTube content tackling conspiracy theories. At the moment, it's predominantly flat Earth and the moon landings. Prior to that, I was mostly doing photography work, photography videos, and I was also, doing a lot of freelance work as a photographer and a lot of video work as well.
Awesome. I imagine a lot of people, obviously you've covered this on your channel, but when you were first approached about the final experiment, what were your initial hesitations or thoughts, or did you actually think it would even happen? Because it's wild, it's weird, it's wacky.
Yeah, there was an element of excitement as well as skepticism. When I started getting emails at first, I received emails all the time. So I kind of glanced over the email, but I don't pay too much attention to them until something actually manifests from it. So
yeah.
It was only when the videos started coming out and there was talk of some final experiment involving flat earthers and globe earthers together, I thought, okay, this could be an interesting thing. Where's this going to go? Then it was, oh, it's involving Antarctica. It's like, what kind of confusion set in at that point, thinking, how are you going to do this? So when it all came out that it was going to be, that was 48 people invited and it was going to involve the Midnight Sun, I thought, that can't make sense. So either you're paying for 48, whoever it is paying for 48 people. So unless this is Mr. Beast, or you're expecting us to pay for ourselves, which isn't going to happen, it's a non-starter. Only then when it came out that it was Will Duffy behind it and he was paying for one from each side, okay, that seems more plausible, but it's still a lot of money for somebody to put down on an argument like this. So yeah, I said I'm up for going, but I was still skeptical as surely there's got to be a catch. When there's a common expression, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And someone saying, I will pay all expenses for you to go to Antarctica to prove the Earth's not flat, kind of sounds too good to be true.
But it gets even weirder when you have to explain it to other people.
Yeah, the look on people's faces was quite hilarious when I was, when I'd say to them, like, my family and everyone, my family, close friends and stuff, know that I do this. So I say, I'm going to Antarctica because of this. They're a bit bewildered, but they get it.
Yeah.
When I'm then saying to other people, I'm going to Antarctica, and they go, why are you going there? I'm like, I'm going to prove the Earth's not flat. They genuinely look at you like you've got two heads.
The audience know what you do. We know what you do. And even then, it's still, what? Like, when it was first announced, I remember sitting there watching the video going, what? Why? It's one of those things where it had to happen to prove the backlash from it. So, for example, people disagreeing with so many different elements. Obviously, before the call, we spoke about 3D renders and all of this. And those arguments now coming up do more to forget the flat Earth model, forget that. It actually just proves the argument of flat Earth, and the mentality behind the argument is bizarre with the way that it's been responded to.
It had started to show... It had started to show those problems before we even left, is the amazing thing.
Yeah.
That flat earthers who for years have been saying there's no 24-hour sun in Antarctica, going to Antarctica is what we need to do. It doesn't work on flat Earth. It does work on a globe. All this talk about they want to go to Antarctica, then get offered a trip to go to Antarctica, and all of them immediately backtrack on it and go, oh no, it's irrelevant, it doesn't prove anything. And then, having spent weeks going, what the sun does in Antarctica is irrelevant, it doesn't matter whether it sets or not, have now spent the week since we got back, like, in an echo chamber with each other, trying to figure out every possible way that it could have been faked, rather than just go, okay, there's a 24-hour sun, and like we said, it doesn't matter. Evidently, it does.
100%. And that's the key difference between cults and science. Science, you get presented with something and then you change your perception or change your model to account for those predictions or to account for those observations and then make new predictions off the basis of that. But with flat earth, it's that is not possible. The 24-hour sun in Antarctica can't be possible. So you didn't see it. And I feel like when it was officially announced that it was going to take place at all, with Eric Dubay, for example, and then saying that it was a completely irrelevant and pointless thing before anyone had even gone to Antarctica to do this, was very telling of the sentiment that is coming from a lot of the flat earth community. Because when you're already getting defensive about something that hasn't happened yet, it doesn't look great.
No, well, funnily enough, that actually Eric's response converted at least one person before we left, because Will Duffy did a video about someone called Amarel who'd seen some of my videos, and there was points that I was raising about things that don't work on flat earth, that only work on a globe, that started to make him question things. And then when he'd seen about TFE, he was a Patreon backer of Eric Dubay, and he messaged Eric and said, you might be getting to go to Antarctica. That's, kind of really exciting to be able to prove it. And Eric responded and said, no, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. It's a wasted exercise. It's pointless, and I'm not going. To which he kind of thought, you've been saying for years that that's what you want to do and that's what we need to do to prove it, and now you're backing away from it. And that was kind of the trigger moment for him to realize that actually everything that Eric Dubay spouts is complete bollocks.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even on Eric Dubay's website now, there's still a whole article about the 24-hour sun that he wrote 4 years ago that still says that if it can be proven and blah, 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 and I'll overlay it on the screen so viewers can see it. But, that's still there, dated, time-stamped, the lot. And
I'm pretty sure one of his 200 proofs of the Earth being flat is there's no 24-hour sun in Antarctica.
Alongside Antarctica not existing.
I'd love to know where I went then.
No, you went to Alaska, didn't you? Yeah, obviously.
Evidently, yeah. In June.
Yeah. So the next thing I want to kind of touch on is when you went to Antarctica, obviously, luckily, because we have a globe and we have science, we know what to expect there and we know the conditions. But is there anything that you didn't think of or consider when you got there, things that surprised you about Antarctica as a place?
Yeah, I mean, I was taken aback by just the sight of it from the plane. Like, when we were flying out, we obviously flew out from Chile, then it was just ocean and clouds. And we're all looking, like, the maps on the back of the screen were like, oh, we're coming up to the peninsula now. We must be able to see it soon. Where is it? Where is it? By the time we'd got over the mainland, it was just white. Like, I was struggling to tell by eye what if it was just a bank of clouds or if it was actually Antarctica. And it was just nothing. It was just ice as far as the eye could see in all directions. It's like, nobody wants to go and freely and independently explore this place. Jiren and Austin had been talking to the ALE staff before the night before, quizzing them about why can't they do this, why can't they do that, and then once we flew over the place, and I walked up to Jiren on the plane, I said, "Do you still want to go and freely and independently explore out there?" And he was just like, "Not a chance. It's insane, the sight of just ice as far as the eye can see, and then this mountain range appears from nowhere, and you don't appreciate the scale of it all either." So yeah, it's
almost like it's very dangerous, and you shouldn't. People probably don't go there.
It's probably why it's not particularly popular as a holiday destination.
Yeah, I know, because I was thinking there's like Alicante, you got France, and then Antarctica. Yeah.
My local travel agents doesn't really advertise for Antarctica much.
No, they're missing a trick, I'm telling you.
Yeah. But I think what also took me back is what was surprising is the weather, because I didn't know what to expect going into it. Obviously, you hear Antarctica, you automatically imagine the pictures of like the expeditions of years gone by, and when you see the footage, usually it's them in a blizzard or just kind of clouds everywhere. And I thought it's going to be freezing cold. We're going to be wrapped up. We're going to be struggling to see the sun through the clouds. And it was nothing like that at all. The procedure when we arrived, they said, just wear like basically normal clothing. The mid layer they call it, which is just like jogging bottoms and a long sleeve top for on the flight, because obviously treat it like a normal flight. You sat around in an airport and stuff. You want to be comfortable. But when we're about half an hour out from landing, the captain's going to come on the tannoy on the plane and tell you to get all of your polar gear on, and they're going to drop the temperature in the cabin so that when you then land and you get off the plane, you're already wrapped up, ready, kind of wrapped up warm.
You can acclimatize to it.
Yeah, exactly. So I put like the trousers and the boots on before we landed, and then I got once we'd landed, I put the big coat on and my hat and gloves and everything. I was nearly collapsing in the plane because it was just suddenly I'm warming up already.
Yeah.
Got outside, it was like there's quite a bit of a breeze coming at me, but I thought, yeah, okay, it's not too bad. By the time I'd got to the camp, we're walking around this induction. There was no wind, sun's beating down on us. At this point, it's like late into the afternoon. And I'm overheating. I'm shedding layers of clothes to the point that I was then just walking around Antarctica in like walking boots and my polar trousers. But I've just got a short sleeve t-shirt on like this. And I'm sort of, they had Starlink at the main site, so we could actually get on and do video calls and stuff. So I'm video calling like the family back home to let them know that I've arrived okay. And I'm walking around Antarctica in a t-shirt, and they're like, why aren't you wearing warmer clothes? Like, because it's actually surprisingly mild at the moment. But then skip forward 2 days later, after we'd been up at the halfway point site doing everything. So that was on the 14th we arrived. On the 16th, they told us that they were bringing us out a day early because the weather was going to be closing in. By the evening of the 16th, clouds had rolled in, so the sun's getting blocked, the wind had picked up. We were riding on bikes around the camp just as something to do because they had them there, and we thought, you've got to give it a go. And I've got balaclava, I've got my coat on, I've got ski goggles, gloves, and like trying to just hide every piece of exposed skin because the wind just cuts through you. It's like,
yeah, it's
insane how much of a difference 2 days makes from going short sleeve t-shirt to pretty much full polar gear.
It's I mean, obviously very different locations, but I went skiing 2 years ago, and in the morning it would be absolutely like you couldn't feel your fingers and your gloves would freeze up, and then come to the afternoon you're skiing in a hoodie and some joggers because it gets so hot with the sun on you as well. It's just it's crazy.
Yeah.
And I think that's something else as well. Like I've seen a lot of people try to dissect the Antarctica argument by saying, well, it's supposed to be minus 1,000,000 degrees there and they should all be dying. Like, that's not how the world works. And, if you had anything more than a slight breeze, that temperature would have dropped immediately.
Well, that's the thing. Like, people were bringing up and say it's very much like the argument of why, like, fan ovens are much more effective than a convection oven. Because once the air starts moving, it makes a massive difference. If you go and put your hand in just a freezer, like in the middle of the freezer, I've done it before. I've been in walk-in freezers when the fans are off. When the fans are off, it's actually quite mild. You put the fans on and it's actually driving the air at you.
Yeah.
The temperature drops massively, or how you perceive the temperature drops massively.
Well, it's the same thing as having a wet hand and sticking it out the window of a car. Gets very cold very quick.
It's like when people are saying like, oh, Austin did his live stream and he just had bare hands, but then you ask him to go pick up snow and suddenly he's got to put gloves on. It's like, yeah, put your hand in an oven, the oven's pretty warm. Touch the side of the oven, you'll fucking know about it.
It's such a stupid argument. By the way, to anyone watching, we're not recommending you do that. Just
yes, disclaimer, don't do that.
Don't do that. That's bad.
Yes.
Obviously, a lot of your interactions with flat earthers over the past couple of years in particular have been based on dissecting their arguments and whatever. Obviously, going to Antarctica and spending time with people like Jiren and Austin, for example, has your perception of them changed, and were they the people that you expected them to be? It's a very loose question, I know, but
yeah. So it's difficult because I didn't really have much direct interaction with them before going. I've done videos in response to videos that they've done, and actually they've done videos in, or some. Jiren did a live stream where he called me a shill, but
standard.
Yeah, but For the most part, yeah, I've not had like direct conversations with them. It's basically been my perception of seeing them, seeing their videos and seeing them in debates with other people. So, yeah, I didn't really know what to expect from them coming in, but I also kind of thought everyone who can be quite aggressive and abusive in a video will usually be a bit more reined in person
Yes, of course.
anyway. But actually, it was pretty good. I mean, me and Jaren had loads of very constructive conversations, and you could see he was genuinely trying to work things out.
Yeah.
Even the first evening when they arrived on the first evening, we'd already been there. We arrived the day before, or I did. So when we then went out for a meal together, and very quickly the conversation delved into arguments about flat versus globe, and the
Yes.
argument of star trails came up, because this is a point that Austin's claimed before, that you can explain the South Celestial Pole because if you draw a circle on a window and then go stand the other side of the window, it looks like it's going the other way. It's like,
Yeah.
when are you the other side of the sky to see the stars rotating the other way? But he started just saying, "Oh no, it's not. It's, you look the other way and it changes." So I was explaining to him. I said, you can get those projectors that project the stars in your room, and you can watch them go around and around, and they will always rotate the same way. It doesn't matter where you stand and what way you face, you'll always see them go the same way. That is what should happen on a flat Earth. Austin immediately dismissed it, but Jiren sat next to him, like a seat further away from me, and I can see him past Austin actually sort of gesturing towards the room, towards the wall, trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I could tell very quickly he was genuinely seeking the truth, and as it's shown post TFE, he's no
Yeah.
longer a flat earther because he's stuck to that.
But it's like the argument of it doesn't matter where you stand in the room, the clock is always turning the same way.
Yeah,
It's the exact same thing.
yeah. Whereas Austin, yeah, was very instantly dismissive of stuff. Constantly was just wanting to, felt like he was almost picking fights at times. Did seem to just want to get involved in arguments. At one point, he came up to me in the hotel reception, and he's like, brings up dark matter, like that's got anything to do with the sun. And he's like, "Oh, you can't believe this dark matter bollocks. It's crap, isn't it?" I was like, "I don't know, Austin. I've not really looked into it, so I'm kind of working my way through things at the moment. Dark matter's not something I've looked into." He's like, "Yeah, but it's just farcical, isn't it? They've got to make it up." I'm like, "I don't know, Austin. I've not looked into it. I still can't tell you." You could just tell he was like gunning for a reaction.
I
And I'm
think
just like,
they're looking for that gotcha moment. I think that's why something that I'm learning at the moment, making content, debunking some of the flat Earth stuff. My first like 2 videos probably weren't as well put together as they could have been, but now the rate of videos is going to slow down dramatically because every single word I say in the video is going to be hung on to. So you have to make sure there isn't anything that you mention or talk about that could be a gotcha moment in the like to a flat earther. And this is something that making on my main channel, making gaming content and all of that stuff is never anything that I have to consider. So it's a really weird situation to be in, especially when you're with them in person. So I can imagine that's difficult.
yeah, you do have to be very careful with what you say and how you word things, because they do. You'll find that they jump on absolutely everything. You find the tactics are they'll just prod you with questions, wanting answers from you. If you give them an answer that isn't word for word perfect, they'll immediately jump on it. The moment you give them a problem, ask them a question that they can't answer, they'll just divert the topic somewhere else. Austin did exactly the same thing, multiple times actually. I obviously my solar camera was on an equatorial mount. Equatorial mounts cannot work on a flat Earth. They're designed specifically to work with a globe.
Yeah.
And I'd said to Jiren and Austin on multiple occasions during the trip, I said, "I'd love to just have a sit down with you and show you how this mount works. And there's a scenario with it that just does not fit a flat Earth, which is at the equator on the equinox, the sun is traversing directly overhead. It's
Mhm.
like, I've shown that EQ mountain can track the sun for 24 hours. Well, if I go to the equator on the equinox, I can track the sun from sunrise to sunset all the way perfectly, and it will cycle right the way around, and it will pick the sun back up at sunrise. So it's following the sun. But in the middle of the night, the camera's pointing towards the ground. How does that fit with a flat Earth? Jiren was actively like, I'd brought it up a few times, and they were like, "Oh no, we'll do it at some point. We'll sit down at some point." And I thought they're just going to keep dismissing it. Jiren, to be fair, actually said to me once we were back at Union Glacier, having seen the 24-hour sun, he prompted me and said, "You need to show me how that mount works at some point." So I went and got it, and we sat down, and it's on his GoPro video that he's published, actually going through it all.
Yeah.
Austin wouldn't do it. Wouldn't sit down to see it. When we were back in Chile, I prompted him again, said, "I want to show you how that mount works." And he's like, "Oh, were you talking about the equator at the equinox?" So Jiren had obviously had a conversation with him about it. I said, "Yeah." I said, I can't fathom how that works on a flat Earth. What's your explanation? And he said, "Oh, I've got a couple," and then just changes the topic to talk about something else. So it doesn't actually tell me what they are. At one point, we were arguing about Canigou Mountains. I don't know if you're familiar with that clip that he brings up quite often with the sunset.
Yeah.
So I covered that in a debunk video about Dearth a few weeks ago, and actually took a photo of the Canigou Mountains where you can see the entirety of them in broad daylight and overlaid it, matching the peaks up. And 3/4 of Canigou Mountain is missing from that sunset footage. Austin didn't want to talk about that. He was dismissing it, saying that it was less than half. It was like, that's still more than zero, which is what a flat Earth would show.
The thing is, if the Earth is curving, let's just do a hypothetical and say the Earth's curving at 0.0000001%. Eventually, it becomes a ball again. Any form of curvature over an extended distance will eventually, if it goes on long enough, come back round.
Yeah, so, flat earthers, when they say we see further than the globe predicts, it's like, okay, well, you're basing that off a ball of 3,959 miles in radius.
Yeah.
So why can't it be a ball of 5,000 miles in radius? That bit doesn't come into it. It's either it's a ball of this size or it's flat.
Yeah, I think the scale is one of the biggest misunderstanding by the flat Earth community. I think understanding scale is probably where a lot of people get lost in the process, and that's probably a side of it which I could probably understand more, because the globe is massive. And
I don't think anybody genuinely, like most people day to day, don't consider all of these things. I didn't until I started making these videos, and then one day I thought, I wonder if I can work out the scales of things. So I took that globe behind me. Obviously, it's got the scale written on it. I can't remember. I think it's like 1 to 144 million or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And I worked it out. And it was like, that's a 30 centimeter diameter globe. That's a drawing pin. I was like, that represents something like 70,000 feet. A normal plane, when you're flying on a globe, is, in fact, it might even be more than that. I think Concorde might have flown through the middle of that drawing pin.
Yeah, I think Concorde was like 40,000 feet, wasn't it? Something like that?
60
really?
For Concorde. Yeah, it was about 60, 65 normally.
Wow.
But yeah, I think Baumgartner's jump was somewhere around the top of that drawing pin above this globe. So actually, it's like microscopic. It's really, really small. We are imperceivably small on a scale of that globe. Yeah. I just don't think but most people wouldn't think like that, because why the hell would you? If it wasn't,
there is no reason.
All these videos.
No, there's no scenario where that comes up unless your job is in building bridges, for example, where you need to calculate some curvature or whatever. There is no scenario where those things are needed to even be thought about, never mind discussed.
Even just looking up at the sky, and you see, everyone goes, "Oh, the sun's..." To our head, it's just easier for us to think the sun's moving across the sky, the moon's moving across the sky, and the stars are moving across the sky, rather than actually, no, we're going around in circles.
Yeah. 100%. The scale of it is something that when you start to think about, you go down the wormhole of going, "Wow, that's mental, absolutely crazy." But then that turns for a lot of flat earthers into, that's an impossibility. Oh my god, my focus racking, Jesus Christ. Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
Should probably set the camera to center lock rather than face tracking. That would probably make more sense. But
I can't remember actually. I used to film on the A7 III, and then I stopped. I switched to the 6400
yeah,
because it didn't have the 30-minute recording limit, and it had better face tracking. But yeah,
yeah,
I remember the A7 III, even without sort of dressed all in black and blending into the chair, it used to
yeah.
struggle at times with me. So
It's really like unless you got high contrast or really big dynamic range, it's really really bad.
I think your glasses probably help.
Yeah, well, the glasses help because it gives it a light to focus on. I think
Mm.
because this is a 24 to 7 G Master f
Okay.
2.8 lens that I'm on at the moment, and it's great in every environment other than this. Like
Yeah.
I've used it all over the world in different conditions, but in this scenario where you, especially with an overexposed background as well, it's
Yeah, it's just it's lost.
yeah, it's lost completely. That actually brings me on to one of the questions. If you had to take one lens with you forever, and it's the only lens that you ever used for photo, video, whatever it might be, what would it be and why? No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. Well, I think if I had to go with just a one lens, because at the moment I pretty much only use three lenses at the moment. 17 to 28 that's on there. I've got a 28 to 75 and a 70 to 180.
Okay.
And the 150 to 500, but I don't use that often. So my main three lenses are within that holy trinity. So if I was having to stick it to one, I would probably go with the 35 to 150.
To be fair, that covers all of the main focal distances that you'd need to use for anything.
Yeah, I'd struggle with some of the wide shot, but I'd have to sacrifice that. But yeah, for I think that would be. I did consider buying it, and then I thought I'd probably can't justify it for the price and the weight and stuff. I do like having the lighter lenses. That was kind of the point of switching to mirrorless for me.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the 24 to 70, the only downside is the fact that it is a great at everything sort of lens. Like, there isn't a scenario where, I mean, unless you're pointing it up at the sky, it's useless. But for most scenarios, it's really good. But it is a nightmare to carry around.
I do like that. I've got the Tamron 28 to 75, and I do. It's a pretty damn good lens to be
Really
fair,
good
and
lens.
it's lighter as well. So that's usually my kind of go-to setup is just A7 IV 28 to 75. That does like 75% of the stuff that I do.
Well, so I had the Sigma 24 to 70 DG art lens. I used that for about 3 years, and then I bought the G Master because people were telling me it was better. No difference. Like, just save the extra £1,000 and don't get it. Just get the Sigma or get the Tamron. The Tamron and Sigma are the best value for money lenses you can get.
Yeah,
By a long
especially
shot.
the G2 Tamron. I
Yes.
had the I had the original, and I just found it was really soft at 2.8 at times, but particularly 2.8 at 75 mil. Like it was really soft at times, and you get a lot of chromatic aberration. Whereas the G2, I ended up getting pissed off with it. I thought
Yeah.
I'm getting the G2. It's a world better.
Yeah. I think as well, something else that I struggled with because I never used to use a external monitor. I used to just reference in camera. So when I was filming like S-Log2 or S-Log3, that chromatic aberration, you really can't see it as much.
Mm.
Then when you actually go and color grade it, you look at it, you're like, oh my God, it's awful. Obviously 99% of people would not care, but
No,
I'll probably cut this bit out. People will not care about this stuff.
no, it's fine.
So obviously Jiren's made his announcement that he's no longer a flat earther. In your opinion, as someone that's met him and spent just a little bit of time around him, where do you think he goes from here?
Um, I think I'm I'm making a prediction based off sort of limited time
Yeah,
with him, but I do think he will work his way back to into sort of the typical heliocentric model. I think at the moment, from listening to what he's been saying, he's obviously ditched flat Earth, but he still seems to struggle. He doesn't seem to be prepared to just drop it completely. So he's talking about geocentrism,
yeah,
and still kind of reconciling like the moon landings and stuff as well and satellites. So yeah, I think he's gonna drop into geocentrism. So he'll accept the Earth's a globe, but he'll think it's the center, which is pretty quickly debunkable just by looking at the phases and the size of Venus, how that changes. That was, how one of the reasons that everyone then worked out that actually we're not the center of the universe. So I think he's basically just repeating history. History
Yeah.
thought the Earth was flat until they realized it was a globe, and then they started looking into space and having just assumed that we were the center of everything, then realized we weren't. I think Jiren's basically just taken that same path, so I think he'll get there eventually. But yeah, I think
I think it's because the flat Earth belief is dependent on the other conspiracies as well. So to lose that ideology that we're being lied to about the shape of the Earth, you also have to then concede that potentially the moon landings were real, and the fact that NASA isn't a government agency that's trying to deceive everyone. So he's got to, in his own time, which is the same thing that happened with Seek Truth, Speak Truth, with Ranty. It took him a bit of time to start realizing that these certain conspiracy theories,
yeah.
They have to go and debunk them all in their own time, and then they'll come back and go, it doesn't make sense.
I think he will get there in the end, but he's got the important aspect, the crucial bit, which is that he does go and look at evidence and actually absorb the evidence and try and make sense of it rather than just dismissing whatever doesn't fit his worldview.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. I think as long as he's got that, he'll get there in his own time. It's just how quickly he's prepared to let go of the conspiracies.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's also the other side of it, which is, it's not a reason to believe, but it's an incentive. Obviously, his channel is his business, and understandably so. When you make content on something, it supports your family and everything, there is an incentive to want to try and prove those things and take away that element of reasonable doubt.
Well, he did say to me, actually, sorry to interrupt. He did actually say to me, so when we were back in Chile, he was kind of saying that what we saw in Antarctica doesn't fit the flat Earth. The Earth can't be flat. Everything fits a globe. So he was already kind of reconciling that anyway. And then he started mentioning about possibly doing future videos where he kind of goes back through the stuff that he used to argue in favor of a flat Earth and basically coming at it from a fresh perspective of debunking it. Okay. So I think if he does take that route, I know he's removed some of his old videos already, or he's unlisted them at least. But whether he'll go back through and start going back over his previous videos and now making fresh videos showing how he was wrong back then. So I think his channel will actually, if anything, in fact, it already has. I think his subscriber count's going up.
Yeah.
Which the same thing happened with STST and Raichi50 as well. Both of their channels got bigger after they left, and they started doing debunk videos instead.
100%. And I think it's scalable as well, because he's already got a big platform to start with. And I know people on the globe side of the argument will definitely support him in that, because seeing him go back through and reconcile the things that he was potentially wrong about would be a really interesting format for his content. And also, unique content on YouTube thrives. So that would be the most unique way to take on flat Earth for one of the biggest flat earthers in the YouTube space. To 180 on it would be incredible.
Yeah.
So this is one of the questions that I think is probably more interesting, and it's a bit more YouTube centric, but obviously a lot of different channels have different approaches to the way that they tackle flat earthers. There's the more antagonistic approach. There's the more comedic side. There's channels that try to balance it in the middle. I've noticed that a lot of yours appeal to like sharing the context, like changing the context of an argument to make it feel less science and more just here's something you can observe and here's why it's wrong, but also at the same time bringing in some of the science, some of the photography side of it. Where would you put your kind of your ethics in the way that you approach it? Because I notice yours is probably the most calm out of many.
Yeah, a lot of people comment about that, about how my videos don't sort of rip into flat earthers, and a lot of I've had quite a few comments from either flat earthers or now ex-flat earthers who've said that that helped it be more engaging, and I understand it. I think if you go into a video immediately poking fun at flat earthers in general, then any flat earthers will get defensive and not then pay any attention to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Um, so I kind of I don't want to just blanket sort of tar all flat earthers with the same brush of that they're all shills or they're idiots or whatever description you want to use. I think I understand that, like we were talking about before, there's so much stuff that I didn't know about before going into tackling these topics,
Yes.
because most of it is irrelevant to day-to-day life. So most people won't ever have a reason to consider these things if their first delve into those topics comes from a misinformation side from flat earth. They don't understand that it's wrong or why it's wrong. They just take it as that's what I've been told, and I've got no, it makes sense in my head, so I'll go with it.
Yeah.
So I kind of I prefer the approach of just I'll give you the information, and if you want to pay attention to it and actually take it on board and work with it, that is your choice. People who don't want to listen to counter arguments are never going to listen to counter arguments, whether you're being polite or whether you're taking the piss.
Yeah.
So yeah, I tend to just go with more the notion of I'm going to put the information out there, and then it's on you. The onus is on you as to whether you want to listen to it or not. And the good thing is the fact that even if flat earthers don't listen, a lot of the topics that I cover is stuff that other people, like globe earthers, still wind up commenting, going, I always come away learning something new from your videos. So even if no flat earthers are going to listen to it, it's still beneficial to other people, and it's beneficial to me because I learn new content anyway. Yeah, the only times I tend to bring in the sort of poking fun at flat earthers is when it is at specific individuals, and frankly when it's justified, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I've quite often say that English is my second language and sarcasm is my first, so I do have to try and rein it in sometimes, which is one of the benefits of sort of planning videos in advance and writing a script for it, is that I can control how I come across in it, rather than sort of dropping a load of sort of too many digs and giving the wrong impression. So yeah, when it's somebody like Nathan Oakley, for example, when I've picked him up on he's done things hypocritically, accused me of sort of saying they've done stuff that proves flat earth, and then he's done stuff that then proves the globe, I'll drop in some sarcastic digs there. But
yeah, I think for me, Nathan, my second video on this channel, Nathan Oakley already started, and in my head I was like, because I think from his position, he saw, I think at the time I had about 300 subscribers. It was only a week ago. The channel's only been around for a week, but he saw 300 subscribers and he thought, easy target.
Yeah.
And then obviously I made the response, and then a lot of the people in his Discord have been asking him to watch my response on stream. And he's made up a million excuses to why he won't, because there's a lot of stuff in my response that he probably doesn't want them to see.
Oh, he did exactly the same with me. Yeah. So the second video that I did was about the moon, talking about the 5 observations that people can make of the moon, and how you can't fit all 5 of those observations in one single flat Earth concept. It doesn't work. So he did a video in response to that pretty quickly, because he thought I was, again, like you, I think he just thought I was the new kid on the block and an easy target. So I did a response to his, which blew up. And I don't think he actually addressed the response specifically. He didn't do, not that I saw at least, he didn't do coverage of the response video.
Yeah.
he then waited and did another video about something else entirely because I'd been having, I can't even remember. I ended up doing a video where I was basically showing how you can work out the heights of objects using trigonometry, but it doesn't work over long distances on Earth because you need a flat baseline
Yeah.
for trigonometry to work. So it should work on a flat Earth, but it doesn't in reality because the Earth's not flat.
Yeah.
But he decided to spin that and basically say that I'd managed to prove flat Earth because you can't do the measurement heights that you should be able to do on a flat Earth. So I made another video pulling that apart. And since then, he's not really touched anything of mine. And when he does, I've noticed my videos are only sort of 10, 15 minutes long. And typically what I will do is the first part of it, I'll be laying out what their argument is and what their side of things is. And then the second half of the video is where I will absolutely annihilate them.
Yeah.
And it always seems to be he'll end up doing a stream that is an hour and a half, 2 hours long, and he'll only ever cover the first part of it. And then he'll say, we'll have to come back to the second part, which is the bit that would be devastating to him. And he doesn't come back to it.
Well, the video that I did was 10 reasons why flat Earth is a cult. And he started his stream off at reason number 5 because reasons number 1 to 5 addressed him directly.
Sounds about right.
And then he was saying that he was saying to all of my members, we covered the first 5 before the live stream, and then literally his own members in the chat were saying, "Oh, I didn't see that." Like people were saying that it never happened. So he knows that he intentionally missed it off because all 10 reasons applied to him, and he actually tried to spin it the other way. So he actually agreed with my entire video, but said that it didn't apply to him. So he was agreeing that Jiren runs a cult and everyone else runs a cult, but Nathan Oakley, no, he's special. He doesn't run a cult.
No. He wants to purge flat earthers out of flat Earth, but he doesn't run a cult. Like, I think he thinks that he's just going to be left as the one flat earther because he's not prepared to make a claim. All his position now is he's realized he can't make a claim about flat Earth, a definitive, testable claim about flat Earth, because the first thing we'll do is test it and prove him wrong.
Yeah.
So now he just says all measurements are flat Earth measurements.
Yeah, the Earth measures
even
flat.
though they're not. Yeah, but he'll do like he'll say, yeah. I think he's pretty much his stance is because we use levels, then therefore that's a flat Earth measurement. Even though if the Earth was flat, we wouldn't need level and horizontal. You could get away with one or the other. He's been a big advocate over the years of celestial navigation, talking endlessly about how celestial navigation works, and yet he cannot explain why the dip corrections that you have to apply to celestial navigation paint the picture of a bleeding globe.
So, they're posting videos on the internet. Some people are watching this using things like Starlink, and people are using their phones, and everything that we know about the world now and every piece of technology we use fundamentally has some link to the globe. So everything must not work. It's
so funny doing this. My head is now everything I wrote, like just day-to-day life. My head is constantly thinking, how can I spin that to globe versus flat Earth? How can I spin this? How can I spin that? Whenever I go and do then something, I'm always in the mind of, I can document it, but I need to think, how are the conspiracy theorists going to respond to this so that I can cover off their arguments and give them no wiggle room?
Yeah.
While we were in Antarctica, we were obviously streaming using Starlink. The Starlink antenna, bearing in mind that on a flat Earth, we're not north. I know flat earthers have dropped the AE map now, but we're the opposite direction to north.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, somewhere outer ring.
Yeah.
The Starlink antenna.
Sorry, but that's a crazy sentence. Outer ring.
I know it's crazy, but the Starlink antenna was on the roof of the hut looking straight up. And even Austin was like, I think, taken aback by the fact that Starlink worked and it was on the roof pointed up. But moreover, when I was flying I flew from Heathrow to Santiago. So if you look at the flight, it's pretty much like...
Oh, that's a nasty flight, that is. It's a long one.
It was about 14 hours. Well, it was either that or I had to fly from Heathrow to Sao Paulo and then have a few hours in Sao Paulo and then fly to Santiago. And I thought I'll take the one long flight rather than adding extra legs where there's potential for more delays or there's luggage getting lost or whatever. I
Yeah.
thought I'd just. But yeah, the flight was pretty much once we got sort of out over the Atlantic, cleared the edge of Spain, but we then did. It was just a straight shot over the entire Atlantic.
Well, the
until
flight
we
alone
reached-
debunks the map.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I've not looked at how the flight path would work, but what was funny was the fact that during the flight, I realized I had Wi-Fi access. I actually had access to Wi-Fi on the flight, and I recorded my phone showing if I put the Wi-Fi on the plane. So I'm showing like the screen of the plane showing that I'm nowhere near bleeding land.
Yeah.
We're over the Atlantic and then we're over the Amazon rainforest. Put the Wi-Fi on, and then my YouTube notifications start updating. The antenna, I took a little photo of the plane when we were at the terminal gate, has got a fucking dome on the roof of it, which is where the Wi-Fi antenna is. It's like, so we're 40,000 feet over the Atlantic, and our antennas are pointing up, and I'm getting Wi-Fi.
I see. I don't understand how it works because space isn't real, and satellites
apparently
aren't
it's
real.
all balloons.
Yeah. So it's all that's a big one. I'd never heard that until yesterday. I had about like 3 comments of people saying that satellites are balloons, and I was like, hang on a second.
What I find amazing is the fact that like that incident that happened, I don't know, whenever it was, a year or two ago, with that Chinese balloon that wound up over the US.
The weather balloon.
That was all over the news, right? They all spotted that balloon a mile off, which is why they knew it was there. And yet, apparently, there's all these balloons that are giving us internet all over the world. No sod can find them.
No. And apparently they're filled with helium, but helium by nature escapes pretty much everything it's in. So surely maybe we would have had 1 or 2 of them come down by now if there's 9,000 of them floating around.
Well, any time anybody, it is funny, isn't it? Anytime anybody sends up a balloon to record the horizon, they send the balloon up with a camera on it, the thing explodes, and then it comes back down. And yet we've not had satellites or whatever antennas crashing all over the cities.
It's almost like they're in, I don't know, orbit. Pushing the boat out.
Yeah, it's almost like flat earthers are talking bollocks.
No, that's just speculation. Oh dear. Yeah, and to be honest, that concludes all of my questions. I think as a viewer of your channel for a while, what you're doing is great because not only, like you mentioned earlier, you're not only debunking flat Earth, but you're also educating people that don't even care about flat Earth about other things. Like, for example, people like myself that maybe a couple of years ago would never have looked at the horizon and even thought about boats disappearing from the bottom. Like, because it's never a thought that you would have to consider because that's just that it is how it is and it's the way it's always been. But actually seeing explanations for why things happen and how things like refraction across atmosphere can work, all of those things I think benefit both sides of the community. Flat earthers can do whatever they want with that information. It's rare to change a mind, but if you change one person's mind, the knock-on effects of that are they can build friendships and relationships. They don't become the weird fringe friend in their friendship group that people don't want to associate with. And that's why, like, for all intents and purposes, I think Will Duffy doing the final experiment has potentially saved a couple of people's lives because they're able to have these relationships with people, because the actual effects of it's not about the shape of the earth. It's never been about the shape of the earth. It's about conspiratorial beliefs. And I think yourself and Will Duffy and all the other people like on YouTube talking about these topics, the end result, no matter who it's for, is a net positive. So I think from the community, a big thank you to you because you're educating people. And the knock-on effects are bigger than just learning stuff. You know, it does change people's lives. And we've seen that. I mean, seek truth, speak truth. Have you seen his recent videos?
Yeah, they have been quite amusing, to be fair.
Yeah, a bit of, I wouldn't say light trolling.
just a tad.
Just a tad. The thing is, though, him a year ago couldn't make that video.
No.
Like, and the fact that he now can, it's telling of the route out of flat Earth, I think.
Mm.
But yeah, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
And is there any final thoughts that you want to have for people? Obviously, your channel will be the pinned comment. I mean, everyone knows who you are anyway on this, but is there any final words?
No, I don't think so. I think it's yeah, I mean the final experiment has been just one an amazing experience for me, but yeah, it's really sort of stirred the hornet's nest with flat earthers and like you say, showing the response of how they've come at it, and yeah, I'm loving the desperation that flat earthers are putting out at the moment of how did we fake it? How did we fake it? Knowing full well that we didn't. And the funny thing is I was thinking about this the other day. In some respects, there's areas where TFE sort of mirrors the moon landing in the sense that we went to this place. Only a few of us went to this far flung place that most people won't get the chance to go to. We've documented ourselves being there, and now all the conspiracy theorists are jumping on board, going, "That's a load of crap," and here's all these little reasons why it's wrong. The difference is, when they went to the moon, they weren't going in thinking how a conspiracy theorist's going to be responding to this, whereas we spent the entire time in Antarctica going, how is a conspiracy theorist going to respond to this? What can I do to record something that's going to disprove that?
That will be
So
the
they had
first expedition in history that has had that approach. I can't think of any other scenario where that would be the case.
none of them would have bothered. Like all the explorers going to Antarctica don't go to Antarctica to try and disprove the globe. When flat earthers are always saying, why are there so many time lapses? Why are there so many shots of the 24-hour sun in the north and there's barely any in the south? It's like, because most people live in the north. It's cheaper and easier for people to go to the north. And why the hell would most people want to go and see a 24-hour sun other than just the beauty of seeing a 24-hour sun and experiencing it, rather than thinking it's kind of like, I think, thinking about it now, it would probably be like, if I want to experience Disneyland, I could go far-flung corners to Orlando, but it's a hell of a lot more expensive and harder. That's why I went to Paris.
Yeah, 100%. It's the same as well. If you want to see 24-hour daylight, you go up to the Arctic Circle, you go up to Tromso or places like that. You don't
Exactly. For 95% of the world's population live in the Northern Hemisphere.
Yeah.
So the travel routes, the cost of it all, it's just cheaper and easier to go and experience it in the north. The only reason we picked Antarctica isn't because we wanted to see the 24-hour sun. It's because it specifically had to be the southern 24-hour sun for this whole argument of the Earth being flat. But like, so all the time we were there going, what way can we debunk this? What way can we debunk that? Even when DroneGate kicked off, I thought it was hilarious. I'm assuming you're familiar with the whole the beeping of the drone and the saying it's backing into the studio wall. The moment I was when I was standing there watching the stream, so I filmed the drone on my camera, going away and then coming back, and instantly my head went. People will say that there was a limit to how far we went back there. They'll say that we didn't put the drone far enough back. So I walked behind Will, so you can actually see me in the stream to the side of Will, and I walked way off down the road, twice as far as the drone went, and I just walked off into the distance. And I just turned around every now and again because it was a nice photo anyway. But yeah, I just made sure that I intentionally walked off a ridiculously excessive amount just to put myself in view, taking the pictures on all these different cameras. I've got the photos that I took as well, just knowing if a flat earther comes back and says the drone didn't go far enough, I'd be like, no, but I did.
Yeah.
We went into this whole time with this mindset of what explanation, what excuse can somebody come for this? So how can we counter it?
I think the very nature of all of it is you could fly every flat earther in the world down to Antarctica, and still a large proportion of them will say that they're not in Antarctica, or there is no reasoning.
Quite possibly. But so for me, this sort of post TFE period is just quite amusing, seeing the responses and knowing I've already preempted, or we collectively have preempted all these excuses. We went in knowing not that we were just capturing the 24-hour sun. We were preparing for the excuses that were going to get thrown out. So, like when I had the debate with Flatzoid last night, I knew it wasn't going to be a debate because whatever explanation, whatever excuse he tried to come up with, click of the fingers, I've got the stuff right there to debunk whatever he's put forward. So it's not a debate. It's going to be they throw excuses, and I've got everything already on hand to destroy it all.
We're about to see, at least for the next 3 to 6 months, a very interesting time on YouTube in the flat Earth space. I would love to see what new map they present, if they do.
I don't think they will. I think there is no map. The AE map was as close as they could get to because, like I say, most people are in the north. So most of the flights, most of the things that people can test were in the north. And even though it didn't properly work, you could kind of jiggle it close enough that it could be acceptable for most people.
Yeah.
The south has always been the problem for flat Earth, but most people aren't in the south to test it.
Yeah.
So now that we've gone and shown this, and I know there's excuses already coming along, certain people trying to create models of reflected suns and stuff, all preempted, all got every excuse covered already. So that'll go on for a few weeks. I don't think they're going to even attempt the map. I think we brought up maps to Flatzoid last night. And he was just like, I'm not claiming a map. I'm not claiming a map. It's like, but you have to.
Yeah.
They have to have a way
basis.
of being able to represent the distances between all the locations on Earth. And he's like, oh, yeah, we've got that. But, they can't get one that fits to scale, single scale. So from now on, it'll just be, the Earth's flat, but we can't actually show anything of what it looks like.
I think it's always been the same way, though. They can explain every phenomena with one model for each one, but each of those completely decimates the AE map, it decimates what we actually can observe. For example, tides. Like the one example I saw, I think it was in an Eric Dubay video where you had like a lump of water moving, but there isn't one lump of water moving around Earth. That's not how tides work. And the sun and the moon can explain tides very easily.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's difficult.
I think all flat Earth models they can show one single observation in a very controlled way. The moment you try adding multiple observations together is where it falls apart, which is why they generally don't. And they have to cherry pick which observations can we explain on this and which can't, and then they start adding random dynamics in that don't make any sense. Like I said, the south has always been where the problem is, which is when you get into like the flights from Sydney to Santiago. Well, then we've got to throw mechanics of jet streams that there's absolutely no evidence to support.
And the jet streams all happen to be exactly where all the flights are in the world, nowhere else.
Yeah, and the jet streams are going against each other,
next to each other,
thousands of miles an hour, and not making tornadoes in the middle of the sky. So kind of at the south has always been where the problems lie. So yeah, I think the
thing is, I would love to see them create a model. It's not going to happen, but I would love to see a model of something, even if it's just trying to explain one element of flat Earth again. Now we've seen a 24-hour sun in Antarctica. I would love to see, and obviously we have that model by Joseph Hanvey in his garage, but that model in it, let's not even get into that. That's it's not even worth. I was going to do a video debunking. Yeah, I was going to get into a video debunking it, and I'm like, I would have to I could debunk every element of it with logic. Like I want to do something a little bit more scientific than that.
Yeah, like I said, we preempted those kinds of, because Joe Hanvey and Stephen Alonso have brought up, I think, quite similar explanations for things.
Yeah.
We'd already considered that those sort of mechanics would be suggested and already done the stuff to disprove it. So
yeah. I mean, to be honest, all I want is someone to take a selfie with the dome. As long as I can get like that, for me, that's all I want. Just someone just to pop over to the edge of the dome and just pop a little selfie.
Yeah,
and I'll concede.
Just go give it a little tap.
Just get a little pickaxe and
Yeah,
oh dear.
go stick a post-it note on the dome, and then I might believe it.
Yeah, that would throw a spanner in the globe. But oh dear. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this video. Thank you for your time. Obviously, I know I'm a smaller channel. You didn't have to. I know you're very busy as well, so you didn't have to give me your time today. So I do appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Oh yeah, and now I'm going to do the face reveal.